Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the beautiful city of Las Vegas. You can see the gondolas are already out this fine morning, and we are ready to get into more Vainglory action. We are at the PokerGo studio in the Aria Resort and Casino. We're ready to get into week 3 of the Vainglory Premier League Summer Open. My name is Munchables. I'm going to be joined by Tasty Bacon. And as we head into week 3's opening rise, Bacon, tell me what you're excited about getting into the week.
I'm excited for just the matchups we have slated for this weekend, especially today. There are two of my most excited matchups that I'm waiting for are happening today, one in Europe and one in North America.
I mean, I'm just excited that we finally have Queso and Nova stepping onto the rise. The debut in week 3 finally coming to pass, and I'm expecting strong performances out of it.
I think everyone's expecting strong performances out of Queso and Nova. I mean, these are, again, top 2 seeds in their respective regions. They need to put up big performances in their debuts in the VPL Summer Open.
Going on scrim results and things, they're putting up big numbers. But let's take a look at our Razor Phone schedule for today. We're going to be starting off in Europe with Team Azura going up against Exceed, and then we'll be finishing things up with Team Queso's debut up against Fern Skull Blackhead. Then later on, we'll jump into our North American games with Vegetable Juice versus Polar Ace, and then Nova's debut up against Liberation X.
Yeah, and of course, these guys are looking to get into the quarterfinals as we take a look at the bracket brought to you by Razor. It's going to be the B quadrant where we're focusing our attention here today. You can see there's already 4 teams qualified for the quarterfinals. 2 more of them are going to be joining them today.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in the B and D quadrant this weekend, but last weekend we were in the A and C quadrant. You can see Clash, Cyclone, Rising Lotus, and Divine Vendetta qualifier. Let's take a look at our Rockstar rewind of how that happened last week.
Yeah, start off with Clash. They got their first appearance on the rise in the VPL Summer Open, and it was pretty much business as usual for these guys. What we expected out of them, just completely taking over that game. And then we also saw Divine Vendetta take on Historic Esports. And this was one of those matchups that we weren't quite sure how it was going to pan out at the start. But Divine Vendetta, even though it was a much closer game, it was still Divine Vendetta always seeming to get those small advantages they needed to win the fights.
Yeah, so we have our quarterfinals decided now over on the left-hand side of the bracket. But honestly, even now, going into the round of eight, the quarterfinals are still kind of up in the air because 2 of the teams, Cyclone, previously Ra Fury, and Rising Lotus, have actually yet to be seen in the VPL.
Yeah, but if the history of what we've seen is to be considered, the top teams have been advancing every single round. The only exception where that didn't happen was in the play-ins, where some of them were teams not showing up and things like that. But thus far in the round of 16, in both regions, I believe it's actually every single top seed has moved on.
Yeah, so far at least.
Yeah.
We'll see if that's going to continue to be the case across the course of today as well. We do have some potential upsets in the works. I mean, the matchups today are looking a little bit more even across the course of things. I'm especially excited for the first matchup.
Yeah.
Azura versus Exceed is going to be a big one to talk about. And in fact, let's pivot over to our first matchup of the day. Azura versus Exceed is a matchup that I'm excited about, not just because, here's your Play Vig matchup for here, but not just because of the rosters of these guys, but also these are middle seeds competing.
Yeah, and this was actually one of those matchups. You go back a week or 2 ago, this was the one I had pointed out in Europe that I was most looking forward to. The names, the team names aren't as familiar, but you look at the player names, as you're going to get a look at Team Azura, Masteral, Tricky, Hunter RX, Jesus, and Bruto. 3 of those names are familiar if you've been following the Vainglory scene, with Tricky, of course, being at the top level, Bruto and Hunter RX being in the challengers for a long time.
Yeah, Tricky is definitely the one that jumps out of the page at me there. He's a guy that's been around for a very long time. But let's take a look at their opponents. Exceed coming on in. Baby Groot and Baby Groot Part 2 both had phenomenal performances in the preseason. I Love Shy, Elo Hawk, and Bastion. Elo Hawk immediately is the one that I have to talk about right there, because, Elo Hawk, Punchik, Donut, whatever you want to call him, he has a storied history of being on the cusp of the top level, but kind of struggling to break through that glass ceiling.
Yeah, he's played on a couple of top teams here and there, but hasn't been consistently at the top level. But then the other name on there as well is Bastion, who, again, you go back to 3v3, he is a well-known name. Yeah. He played on top teams. He won a live championship. But this is the first time we've seen him in 5v5 on a competitive level. So I'm actually really excited for this Team Exceed roster.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like when we look at the two rosters, on paper, Exceed is the favorite here. Even though the seeding is basically even, Exceed feels like they have more big names, more experience in the roster, whereas Team Azura, they have a couple of big names, but there's a lot more unknown factors on that team.
Yeah, and it's also just the recent experience, really. Baby Group Part 2, both you mentioned, both played in the preseason. No one else on this list has played in the preseason. And so the fact that there are just that little bit of extra recent experience for the side of Exceed is what I feel gives them a slight edge. If I had to pick a favorite, I would give it to Exceed, but this is a matchup that could absolutely go either way.
Yeah, it definitely could, and I think a lot of it is going to be decided in the draft as well. Obviously, we are still on update 3.6, and we'll see where these guys are going to go with it, and also just in general where the drafts go this week, because as you guys all know, if you've been following Vainglory for a long time, the drafts develop a lot over the course of the update. So we're in week 2 of the update now. I expect things to be shifting significantly.
I don't know about significantly. I mean, this is an update that didn't have major balance changes. There were a couple of heroes that got some decent tweaks. You know, the Lance buff, I think, is going to bring Lance into the meta when he really wasn't played at all before. But a lot of the top heroes that we were already seeing getting picked, I don't think we're going to see them fall off because there were no major nerfs in update 3.6 that really took anyone like super hard out of the meta like we have seen in the past.
Yeah, that's very true. It was kind of a tweak update, but we'll have to see how it's all going to develop. Let's take a look at some of our trending picks that we've been seeing across the course of the VPL so far. Now, these picks, the ones that are up are ones that we've been seeing consistently and have been winning those games. The ones that are down, they're also consistent in the draft, but they've really not been performing as of last weekend.
Yeah, and a lot of that I think is just the players figuring out these utility heroes. You see the ones that have been getting the wins, the Samuel, the Finn, the Tony, and there's a lot more utility there, whereas Moline, Celeste, Vox, they're pretty much just straightforward, just damage. Yeah. And so that having that extra utility in your team, I think is, especially in 5v5, is so important because you're not just providing utility to 2 other members anymore. You're now providing it to potentially 4 teammates when you do use something like, especially Finn, you know, being able to use the polite company to give that fortified health, which did get buffed in 3.6 as well. So I expect to see Finn continue to be a top.
We've seen a lot of really good Finn players across the course of the tournament so far as well. We are into the draft though. The game is underway, or the match is underway, I suppose. Azura versus Exceed. Azura going to be on our A side to start things off. Reza and Anka going to be banned away. Fairly unsurprising. And we'll see. I'm kind of surprised that they banned both Reza and Anka on A side, because they're the kind of picks that you would want to sneak through. However, Samuel and Fortress banned Kensei and Kinetic, both open for a first pick.
So is Finn. And again, we just talked about how much impact Finn has been having. We've seen a lot of teams do these safe first picks, but they are going to go for the Kensei right off the bat. Expect to see it answered with Kinetic.
I really like the Kensei here over Kinetic because it's essentially like Kensei is good at killing Kinetic.
Yeah.
So you're kind of locking yourself in a counter. You know that they have to lock in Kinetic. There's no way they can't now because if they don't, you're just going to grab it for yourself.
I mean, we saw it happen last week where teams didn't pick up one or the other on B side, gave over to both Kensei and Kinetic, and it was just a whitewash. Like, it wasn't even a close game at that point. So definitely you need to make sure you get one of those 2 heroes or ban one of them away. It's kind of a similar situation to what we saw in 3v3 with, you know, some of those power picks coming through. But it is going to be the Churnwalker getting paired with it. And Churnwalker's another one of these heroes that it seems like he's either picked in the first rotation or just ignored completely.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like we do have Kuroz stepping in instead of Baby Groot 1. So interesting that one of the Groots is going to be missing from this roster. That does change things up a bit. I'm interested in the Churnwalker pick here. I feel they hovered Arden for a little while, and I wish they'd just locked that in. I feel like Arden is just consistently better right now. And then Flicker on the other side, I don't think either of those captain picks are kind of the best in their role right now. I'm kind of interested behind the logic on locking them in so early in the draft as well.
Yeah, the Flicker pick I think is more just, again, that utility of being able to get the movement speed for the entire team is so important for trying to dive onto someone like Kinetic. And Kensei with that extra movement speed, especially if he has that invisibility as well, if he's not spotted out, can just cause havoc in an enemy's backline. Obviously, usually in a top-level game, you're going to have the vision down so that the invisibility isn't really as much of a factor from the Flicker ultimate, but a lot of it is still that movement speed is still very valuable. You get the movement speed whether you're invisible or not. So Kensai will definitely benefit from that. The Celeste pick, again, safe mid laner. Everyone is still kind of leaning towards the Celeste as the top mid lane for the moment.
And I think as well, when looking at the opposing composition, there's no real dive right there now. So the Celeste is a fairly safe lock-in in this stage of the draft. Batiste, I really like. This composition from Exceed right now is very much just protect kinetic. No one else is going to do any major damage. I mean, Batiste will do a little bit with weapon power once he's got that breaking point, but generally speaking, this is a lot of peel for kinetic. On the other side, similar story a little bit. There's some peel for Celeste, but realistically, the composition honestly from Azura is a very mixed composition. It doesn't feel like it has one direct purpose.
Really hoping we might get that pedal, but it is going to be the Finn. And again, you know, Finn just very strong right now. It can fit into multiple different roles. But yeah, I agree with you about the identity of these compositions just not really being a clear-cut, defined identity. There's no, you don't look at it and say, this is their win condition. But at the same time, these sorts of compositions can work out really well because you can sort of change and tweak your win condition based on how the game has been going.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see if that's going to work. The issue that I see with this is you've got your two carries have very drastically different styles of play. So Celeste and Kensei. Kensei wants to get onto that backline. Celeste wants to stay back and kite away. You've got Finn who will be able to stick with the Celeste, and you've got Adagio who can kind of help Kensei dive in a little bit, and then Flicker that's kind of the wild card pick in the middle. It's sort of a half and half, and I can see situations in which that would work, but I can also see situations in which that's just too discoordinated and they're just going to kind of fall apart.
I can also see some struggling early on because Flicker or Finn, one of these two is going to have to be in a lane and still manage to find a way to get gold. So that's something that perhaps can be taken advantage of by the side of XC, and I think something that they should try and heavily focus on.
Absolutely. We'll have to see if they're going to be able to capitalize on those kind of situations. It's definitely going to be an interesting matchup. Azura versus Exceed here. Let's bear in mind, just to remind you guys, these are the middle seeds going up against each other. This is as even as it gets in the round of 16. It's about time we jump onto the rise, though. It's game number 1 between Azura and Exceed. It's time to pass it over to Excoundrel and Flash X to take it away.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the VPL, and we're going to kick things off with Team Azura versus Exceed. I am here with Flash, and I haven't actually had a chance to say hi to Flash yet because I joined pretty late. Buddy, how you doing?
Excoundrel, I am doing great, my friend. Definitely had the pleasure of casting with Humanist last week. Super excited to be casting with you here this week.
Oh, dude, I am honestly hella excited. What do you make of these two drafts then? We've got a little bit of early action though, so let's just keep an eye on it. It looks like Exceed being aggressive, defending their own TP buff, now making their way into the red side jungle, which is very North American of them, very unlike EU. And already a massive fight going on. Tricky getting pounded on the top hand side, has to pop that flask, goes down to Scarf, and now Baby Groot getting forced away here. This is an absolute madman fight. Trade 2 for 1 so far, but it is Exceed that are coming out on the losing side as the Adagio eventually goes down. Bruto helps pick up the kill there as he goes aggressive onto Ponchik, and you can see Celeste should be able to pick up that final kill. A triple kill for Celeste.
Wow.
A triple kill for Celeste at level 1. That's insane.
7 kills in the first 2 minutes. Europe. I love the early game aggression. Seriously, so much fun. Definitely to be expected. I mean, this is exactly what we saw last week. Asura definitely coming out on top. That's going to be huge for Celeste. Picking up 3 kills this early on into the game. It's going to be really good for her, both her level and her item progression. She's got to be feeling pretty good about that.
So, just talk a little bit about these drafts, because obviously, for me personally, I always think Kensei gives you a really good late game win condition that's always going to activate post 20 minutes. Which of these two drafts are you looking at and saying, hey, I quite like that?
Definitely very much expected meta drafts, nothing out of the ordinary. I probably like Asura's a little bit better just because Kensei is so strong late game, but you have to be careful for that Churnwalker. I think Churnwalker is the standout captain hero right now, and that's going to be something that Asura has to keep an eye on.
While we were talking, Kuroz and Baby Groot in the top lane just managed to put pressure onto the Adagio and get the kill there. He's sitting on just a Stormguard banner and a Dragon's Heart at this point in time. And you do not want to give a Weapon Power Kinetic a start. Just like Kensei, Kinetic, when she's Weapon Power, can scale up incredibly easily. And again, rotating around. Another big fight taking place around that crystal buff, and Team Azura getting forced back. Kuroz going aggressive, forces that flask out of the Celeste already. They want to take this fight right now as Bruto becomes the sacrificial lamb. Oh, wait a second. Tricky pops in. He pops out and he picks up a kill alongside Celeste. But the Scarf going to clean things back up, and they'll get out with just a skin of breath at the end there. Kuroz and Ponchik, super aggressive. I mean, this is the most aggressive I've ever seen Europe be.
Absolutely. I mean, we saw this a lot in the preseason. They had it again last weekend when I was casting, but things are not stopping here.
They're not indeed, and Baby Groot is going to be the one going down. Kuroz doing his best to kite, but early game Kinetic, not exactly the best weapon power carry in the world for her early game power spikes. But Kuroz manages to dash over the wall, backs out towards the mid lane as Celeste picks up yet another kill. 5-1-1. She's already hit the Heavy Prism and Eclipse Prism mini lane spike. It's 4 minutes into the game, almost getting a tier 3 item on board, you know, as it stands. What is going on? This is just insane.
Yeah, sitting at 5-1-1 already. It's going to be super good for her. Gonna be able to see if she can continue to use that aggression and really all this early game gold to her advantage. She's gonna want to come back up to this lane, continue to find a lot of the farm. Tricky though, in this bot lane on this Kensei, if he's just left unattended and he's just farming, that's going to be really good for him as well. And him in that front line diving Scarf and these other squishy backline carries, that's something that Exceed is really going to have to be careful of.
Yeah, I always like Kensei when he's paired with something like an Adagio or an Arden. You've got Kensei paired very nicely with the Finn and the Adagio here. You're going to give him that fortified health and give him the Gift of Fire. Looks like a potential flank coming out, though. The Flicker coming to the back line, putting pressure onto Ponchik. Tricky going in. That is going to be a dead dragon. And they're going to clean that up. Dragons on the menu, and a crystal buff finally going the way of Team Azure. They've been trying so desperately. Actually, wait a second. Shy on Churnwalker steals it away. They do have their own, but I do believe that's getting taken by Baby Groot there on the CP Batiste, by the way. Talk to me a bit about the CP Batiste, because we more often than not in 5v5 see weapon power Batiste.
Yeah, we just really haven't even seen a lot of CP Batiste in general. He's one of the heroes that I think struggles actually quite a bit in this meta. There's just so many tanky heroes. I mean, you got the Finn, you got the Flicker. Kensei is super tanky in his own right. It's not something that we've seen very much at all, but I think he's going to be wanting to use those fearsome shades, disrupt these team fights. It's a great addition to this crowd control, pairing it with the trespass from Churnwalker. It could be very effective, but Chris Power Batiste, he's going to have a lot of the splash damage. So with all these tanky melee heroes in the front line, he's going to be wanting to try and splash as much as possible.
Well, that's a great stun onto Jesus there. He does manage to get the stun back, but unfortunately has to give up Finn's life, and that will be a defensive stun nonetheless from Jesus here on the Celeste. He will back out as the CP Batiste has hit that item spike of his Shatterglass. So you really don't want to mess with the CP Batiste with a CP buff and Shatterglass at this point in the game. And again, this is a really back and forth game right now. Sometimes it feels like Ashura in the lead, then Exceed make a really aggressive play, get themselves back into it. And now they're looking to dive Jesus underneath this tower. Almost the equivalent of one shot, one shield, one kill coming out there from the Kinetic, and they're going to take down the Celeste. And again, really impressive stuff from both of these teams. A really nice fearsome shade, pushing the Adagio back towards Kuroz, but doesn't even really need the help. They pick up another kill and can pressure this turret as well.
Absolutely. Exceed, you know, they struggle a little bit in those early game rotations. They are coming back strong. They have a little bit of a gold lead. They're going to be able to take down this first turret of the game. That's going to allow them to start rotating much more frequently into the jungle of Asura. Jesus going to try and secure his Crystal Treant. Despite picking up so many early game kills, the damage on the back end of that just hasn't shown up for his team. He's been forced to kite and kite and kite, but Exceed doing a great job avoiding it.
Ponchik actually getting taken out in the mid lane. They're also putting pressure onto Shy, but he has got that flask. Has to be careful because those stray Heliogenesis are starting to pick off a couple of his HP bars there. Tricky rotates back up towards this CP buff. Bastion is there in the sidelines waiting to try and be a nuisance as Bruto face checks him. Bastion trying to do his best there. I don't think he's got what it takes to finish Bruto off, but maybe Baby Groot does as he manages to land a single bad mojo. Tricky now going full man mode, and the gauntlet is not enough to save Arden from that spellfire damage, and this is a bit of a fight coming out now. Baby Groot in the front line, forced to kite back. Another kill goes over to the Celeste, and here goes Tricky on the front line. Those barriers stacking up left, right, and center. A triple kill for Celeste, and suddenly again, Jesus is popping off on Celeste in the back line, and it is another swing going in favor of Team Azure.
Yeah, and Jesus is only level 6 right now. If he can hit that level 8, get the extra range on his Heliogenesis, that is when Exceed is going to have to really start being wary of the Celeste. Still just some more damage exchange back and forth. Loic doing what he can on this Scarf. Azura going back in.
That was a nice block on the pull there. Probably one of the easiest abilities in Vainglory to block, but it is one of the most crucial. Scarf trying to counter-engage with that ultimate. They're going to try and take the Finn. Finn is better than nothing at the end of the day, and he will end up going down to the Scarf eventually. Fearsome Shade not quite on the money with the Celeste, but this might have done enough to create pressure on this tier 1 turret. Feels like Exceed are just going to back off, though.
Yeah, Azura feeling pretty confident a couple of minutes ago, starting up that Ghost Swing. I think Exceed did a really great job stopping them from doing that, but Azura looking to get aggressive, invading the jungle just a little bit. Kuro's starting to pick up some of these breaking point stacks on Kinetic though.
Oh, that's the ultimate from Tricky. He pops in. That's a nice Churnworker ultimate, but not enough to save from the Celeste ultimate as well. Tricky now has found his prey, and Kinetic is the first on the menu. Shy is going to be forced back here as, well, Flicker just doing what he can to force him away. But this is a great weapon power invade here. Tricky's going to pick that up. And speaking of Tricky, he has got 15 CS or so lead over his weapon power counterpart in the form of Kinetic, and is very nearly at that second item of Breaking Point. Then has spare gold to boot, which you can even go for tier 2 boots.
Yeah, just a lot of back and forth. Very kill heavy game, sitting at 26 kills. The gold is neck and neck though. I think that's awesome that these teams are so evenly matched. Things getting a little bit spicy in the river though.
Yeah, that's very, very spicy. That's a great polite company. Kind of forced Exceed away from that situation, and Jesus had managed to pick up his CP buff. Just as you were talking about earlier, that level 8 has now been hit for Celeste. The extended range on the Heliogenesis, the artillery cannon that everybody hates to play against. As a double kill for Flicker somehow in the top lane, and this Kinetic is starting to pop off Flash.
Yeah, Kensei definitely the hero that you do not want to give too much to, or he can definitely start to run away with the game. And now that Celeste has come online, she has 11 kills right now.
Oh my word, Tricky popping off with another one. They're looking for a tower dive in this situation. The Churnwalker ultimate is enough, but not enough to stop the stun from Kensei. It is going to be another kill picked up by 12, 2, and 3 on this Celeste. And suddenly Azure finally taking a considerable lead in this game. The first major gold lead that has opened up, and it's only 2,000 gold.
Okay, wait. Celeste is sitting at almost 4,000 unused gold in her inventory. She picks up the Dragon's Eye. She picks up the Clockwork.
And the Light Shield.
And the Light Shield. Yeah, that's... Yeah, Exceed, you're in trouble, my friends. That's going to be a huge power spike. He's sitting at 12 and 2 right now, and you pick up those 2 huge items off the back of it. That is going to be insane if she's able to just sit in this back line. A great Moon Cloak out of Flicker. We'll see what they can use with it, though.
Going on to Kuro's, he's starting to chunk down super heavy as Flicker picks up the kill. On the meantime, though, Jessis is caught out by Exceed, who rotate round really nicely. Bastion is the target. He's kiting around this turret now, and Tricky jumps over the wall but misses. It doesn't matter, though, because he's Kensei. But unfortunately, he goes straight into the wall of the Arden Gauntlet. But I say that, the barrier's still existing. I thought he was dead. He's going to continue going onto that Churnwalker. The ultimate won't save him. And everybody, that's Kensei.
Yeah, Kensei's enough. It's like absolutely insane. SCFC, please the nerf. But those barriers paired with the Serpent's Mask can keep him alive so long. The Pulse Weave providing so much utility to the side of Azura in these team fights. Celeste, even though she got picked off early at the start of that fight, it didn't really matter because Kensei, with those double buffs, going to be doing so much damage. Azura immediately turning their attention onto this Ghost Wing. Will be the first dragon of the game, I think, to be captured, and definitely going to be using this buff to their advantage.
It's been too much action to take a dragon at this point in time.
Exactly.
I thought Kensei was dead. I was ready to give up on that fight, but I think he used his A into the Arden Gauntlet Wall, and I thought that's it, Kensei's donezo. But he still survived, still managed to keep that barrier going. The attack speed enough at this point in time. He's now picked up a Slumbering Husk, which is going to make him nigh on impossible to deal with in these fights. This feels like it is Team Azure's game to lose at this point going forward.
Yeah,
still, the whole map is split right now, Flash, as well.
Yeah, they have a nice little gold advantage sitting there. No Soy Un Nomo going into some trouble in the top lane, though.
Yeah, but the Bruto on the Flicker is there to tank things up. That Pulse Weave doing insane damage. He does tank out the ultimate from Kinetic too. And that was a lot of resources expended by Exceed for very little reward. But wait a second, we've got another fight potentially breaking out here. Celeste doing her best, takes a couple of stray hits. A great hook from Finn across the wall, and this is right into Celeste territory. There's the ultimate, there's the pickup of the first kill, and Kuroz is going to be the second. He tried to trade back against Jesus, but the heal from Adagio keeps this Celeste very much alive. It looks like they're not done here yet. The Flicker in that front line, trying to be aggressive, tricky now as well, ready to jump in if the time calls for it. They pressure them back. Black Claw is the objective that they want to take. Do they have what it takes to do this? And I don't even think Exceed are going to try and contest it. It might be an attempted steal, but that's it.
Yeah, that's going to be looking pretty grim for the side of Exceed. Asura has come online. Kensei Tricky going immediately into the Arden and the Churnwalker.
Yeah, that's going to be the turret forcing her away. But even these tankier targets are starting to feel the wrath of a late game Kensei. I say late game Kensei, we're 14 minutes into the game, Flash. It shouldn't really be late game Kensei.
It feels like late game Kensei, though. He's got the Serpent's Mask. He's got the Breaking Point. Slumbering Husk so strong right now. He can pretty much get away with doing whatever he wants.
Flicker super aggressive in the front line there. There's the potential engage by Kinetic. Kensei rather tricky on the front line, tanking up those turrets, but he has got so much healing, so many barriers. He might be going down, though. I think it was too much tanked. And Blacklaw may be in a situation where Azure are going to have to back off now. They potentially get this choke point turret, but I don't think they commit much further than that.
That was a phenomenal trespass by Churnwalker, locking down the Kensei, allowing Exceed just enough time to capitalize on the kill.
Oh, the pull and scarf, the no reflex block. It was a little bit late from that situation, and Jesus nearly takes him out with the Heliogenesis on the back line. Unfortunately, they sacrifice Adagio to Baby Groot on this CP Batiste, who has now got that 2-item spike of the Clockwork Shatterglass and is continually pumping out those bad mojos. Bruto here, Jesus as well being targeted. That's an ultimate coming through. I think it's going to hit both of them. It does catch this Celeste on the sidelines, and I think this Celeste is going to lose her life. She gets pulled back in. Groot picks up the kill, and I think Ghostwing just has spawned.
Exceed the phenomenal Black Claw defense right there, picking up some really good bounty kills, swinging the gold lead back into their favor. They were down almost 3k gold, but from that one quick sequence, they're already back in the lead. They're picking up this Ghostwing buff. Those are going to be huge power spikes, and the game has just completely shifted back into their favor despite being so far behind.
I feel like I've barely given you any time to talk this game because we've had ridiculous amounts of fights and ridiculous amounts of kills.
It has been an absolutely just really madman game, back and forth. So many kills, so many fighting. I love the action. This is exactly what I enjoy out of Vainglory as an esport, though.
Yeah, just mental action all over the place. The Crystal Tree getting invaded here, tricky on the wrong side of the map. This is dangerous from Azure, but that Flicker with Pulse Weave has single-handedly made Flicker a good hero. Like,
absolutely, it really does.
Single-handedly just made Flicker a decent hero. And Tricky on the backline here, straight into Kinetic. Is this going to be a chance for him to jump in? He's got plenty of space to do so. Lots of stuns going through. Can he sustain up? What an ultimate from Tricky! He blocks out the Churnwalker ultimate as well, and he's going to continue to wail on the backline of Exceed. The barrier still going through. He even trades one with his life at the end there. Celeste very low though. This might be a bitten off more than they can chew for Team Azure, and they are going to back. But I mean, I just never thought he was going to die. He was just insanely tanky there.
Yeah, despite going in so far ahead of his team, I didn't like his positioning at the start of that engagement. Again, he is so much utility in the sense that he just regens so much with just the Serpent's Mask and the barrier that's built into his passive. It really is so strong, so effective. He did land that beautiful 3-man ultimate, which was critical for keeping himself alive. It's some great damage exchange back and forth. But Azura, they need to tighten up their team's positioning, because if they don't exceed with this lead that they have now obtained for themselves, that's a huge risk for them. Just really throwing, if they're not positioned well at the start of these team fights, you need to have the tanky front lines sitting in front of the Celeste so that she's not getting picked up and picked off at the start of these team fights, and she can continue to lay down these heliogenesis, because she's taking so much damage that she is getting forced out of these team fights, and that is not what Azura wants.
I feel like the team composition from Azura is a little bit paradoxical. You want to support the dive of the Kensei, but you want to protect the backline of the Celeste. It's kind of like it wants to do two things and do two things that are very opposite of each other. That is a blocked Finn ultimate. It looks like Azura wants to continue this fight. They jump in onto the Scarf. That is a massive engage. Oh, a great disengage that wasn't properly blocked there. The Adagio ultimate does come out, and because the Crucibles have already been used, it gets the stuns down. There's the Celeste ultimate. Tricky looking for his opening past this Arden Gauntlet, but is not going to get there. Bruto again, that tanky flicker on the front line. The fountain will be enough to back them out. Wait a second, Tricky's not done yet. I think there's a lot of damage going down onto him, though. He's bitten off more than he can chew in this situation. And again, because Tricky went over aggressive, unfortunately, they pay the price. And that is going to be a double kill. Wait a second, how did Celeste pick up a kill there? Tricky going back in onto Ponchik. That's the barrier starting to come through. He is going to respect the CP Batiste, though. And Bruto and Tricky, I think, have done all they can. That was a 4 for 3. What looked like a sure thing for Azura ended up being a pretty good trade by... oh, what a great ultimate, by the way. And now Tricky has to be careful. The block comes through. I think Bruto could be done for. Oh, it's close. It's close. Yeah, Bruto's done for.
Yeah. Again, that's exactly what I was just saying Azura needed to do. They grouped up. They had a great start of that engagement. They were really grouped well together. I mean, I know that that's not necessarily something you want to do against the Batiste, but I think that it actually served them very, very well. It enabled Celeste to just stay in there and continue to apply her damage. Exceed, though, did a phenomenal job turning that back around. I am really impressed by how much damage Batiste is doing. That's not typically a hero that we see super effective at this competitive level. But the fearsome shade just forcing enemies away in these team fights. If Azura doesn't find the blocks at the right time, that could make or break the difference for these engagements.
I quite like it for the simple fact that you'll never beat Kensei in a sustained damage war. Kensei is the ultimate sustained damage hero in the game. But you put in CP Batiste, who is going to have a huge burst damage on a melee front line like Tricky. Or this isn't engaged, though. He's looking for it. He's trying to get onto the back line. He managed to get through the Garden Gauntlet, which actually cancelled out. A brilliant Fearsome Shade, again doing its job versus this Kensei, who is once more slowly chunking his way forward. The kinetic on the back line does go down, but not before he trades 1-for-1 with the Celeste. And now Tricky just trying to stack up on this Batiste in that front line. Another great stun, and now I think he's found his opportunity. Ponchik can do no more than channel his ultimate, and it's up to Tricky at this point in time to try and carry this fight. It's Tricky versus the world. He takes out the Scarf. No one can stop him at this point in time. It's just an Arden and a Churnwalker. He can't overextend, though. Don't underestimate the damage coming out from the Vein Crystal, Tricky. He ultimates in. That's a little bit overextended. He doesn't get the kill, and I think he's found his time to back out of this situation, Flash.
Yeah, his breaking point stacks have worn off. He knows that he can't go back in and trade. He needs to try and disengage, but those pulls, the trespass, Exceed again. It looks like they're losing at the start of the team fight. It was a phenomenal trade by Kuroz to be able to take down the Celeste at the same time. That was actually a 1 versus 2 engagement. Bruto is actually doing what he could to try and keep Jesus alive on that Celeste. But yeah, phenomenal trade by Kuroz. And then for Exceed to be able to come back, really turn things around in that fight, they're immediately going to turn their attention on to this Ghost Wing. And the buff is going to be something that at this stage in the game, Azura might not want to contest.
No Celeste ultimate for the attempted steal, and that is going to be Exceed taking the Ghost Wing. Let me pose this question to you, Flash. If you're Bruto, it looks like a lot of the time you're split from Tricky. Do you think the better option for Azura is say, okay, well, Bruto and Tricky as a unit, Like, they can dive. The pulse wave damage is pretty high coming out from Bruto. They dive onto someone in the back line like Kuroz or Ponchik, and then you leave the Adagio and the Finn to try and body block and protect the Celeste.
I agree 100%. I think that something that Azura really needs to do is they need to be a little bit more coordinated with who they want to engage onto. That last fight, it was the Celeste and the Flicker going onto the Kinetic, but I think their main target needs to be the Scarf.
This is a massive engage. Kuro's caught off on the side lane. It is tricky, and the Flicker going toe-to-toe right now, but it's not enough to actually get the kill, and suddenly they pick up the kill onto Adagio. Tricky on the backline, though, and he has got blinking health bars to take down left, right, and center, and that is going to be Kensei doing what Kensei does best, comboing with that Celeste, and I think we've found our winner. Unfortunately, it's not Exceed.
It is not Exceed. Exceed put up one hell of a fight, though. 67 kills in a Vainglory game. Where did 67 kills come in 23 minutes? That's like quick math. It's like 3 kills a minute, pretty close. Yeah, that was action-packed. I don't even know what happened in that last team fight. Exceed lost it. They all got blown up. But yeah, huge kudos to Azura keeping their composure despite throwing away a little bit of an early lead, coming back at the end. Definitely going to be a very exciting game too.
I think the problem was you never take something like a Blacklaw against a Celeste, like especially when no one's dead and you've got a complete man and equal advantage across the board. Taking a Blacklaw against a Celeste is asking to get sieged, you know, when you're doing that, and they took so much damage from those Heliogenesis. Well, that was the game 1 here between Azura and Exceed. Azura take the 1-game lead in this series. We're going to hand it back over to the desk to see what they have to say.
I cannot believe what a bloodbath we just witnessed right there. The crazy thing to me is that 67 kills fit into a 23-minute game.
Right? Like, it was absolutely insane how frequently these teams were fighting.
Yeah.
And it was both of them kind of employing similar strategies of just trying to group up and look for objectives. But then the opposing team would just group up and try and defend that objective, and it ended up resulting in so many of these fights with like just one person left standing at the end of the fight, so that they can't push. And so then you just get another reset of the same fight happening over and over again.
Yeah, I feel like looking at the scoreboard, it's really easy to praise Jesus on that victory because he was on the Celeste. He was sweeping up the kills. But honestly, Tricky was the standout player to me in that game because his knowledge of how far in you can go on Kensei and get out with your life was incredibly impressive. The ability to jump in those fights, use your cooldowns, burst someone, and then get out, reset again, and go in for another strike.
And not only that, but just the target selection by pretty much everyone, really, not just Tricky, but knowing that, okay, we need to try and get these carries taken down. You saw so many times the first people dead were like the Kinetic and the Celeste, right off the bat, or if Celeste survived, then oftentimes it was Tricky that was, but pretty much both teams were picking one of those carries and saying, one of them needs to die right off the bat or we lose this fight.
And maybe that's the wrong man. Maybe one of the teams needed to be protecting their carries instead. Let's take a look at where we are in the bracket though. We're in Group B in our Razor Phone bracket right now. It's Team Azura versus Exceed, and you can see the winner of this series is going to be going up against the winner of the next series here today, which will be Queso and Fern Skullblack. A pretty likely Queso, but so far actually, Azura and Exceed have been putting on a good show. Like, I expect that whoever does go up against their next opponent will be in with a decent chance of actually showing up.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why this was one of the matches I was looking forward to the most of the entire tournament. So, and these teams are kind of showing why this was one of the most hyped up matches. If you take a look at the power rankings, this is each of us having our own thoughts on this.
I can actually justify my decisions now. I'm actually on the desk to talk this through. So, I mean, Queso at the top, Clash second. I think those are both fairly reasonable. You've gone for Exceed over Sly here. Talk to me about that, because I feel like Sly is the safe, like, X-Rising Lotus, third seed. I think that's a pretty reasonable third pick.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a reasonable third pick. I wanted to kind of go outside the box a little bit. Looking at these teams on paper, it was just, there was so much experience on this team, and I was really looking forward to seeing them, bring that experience to the table. And I felt like they had just that little bit of an edge that could get them over the hump. Obviously, we hadn't seen these teams compete yet.
I mean,
so it was,
to be fair, I was getting ready to rib you during that game because they were starting to fall pretty far behind. But the comeback they made, they did still lose the game, but they did it. Like, I'm impressed by Exceed on that first game. But I definitely think Sly, with the leadership of Keanu and Nakoa, I think the experience on that roster and just the names on that roster instantly makes them a favorite for top 3 and maybe could even do better than 3rd.
I mean, we saw it in the preseason where it was Queso Clash 1 and 2, but then after that, it was just kind of up in the air. And I think it's still the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are just getting ready to go into the draft. We're just waiting on one of the players, though, so we'll be with you guys very shortly on that one. But I want to talk a little bit more about this matchup once again, and I want to talk about Caroz. Now, Caroz was the guy subbing in. Bear in mind, Baby Groot did not play this game. Baby Groot Part 2 did, but obviously his main counterpart wasn't on the roster for today. I'm not 100% sure why, but Caroz stepped in. Now, Caroz, I think, in this game was kind of hit or miss because he had some glorious moments on his kinetic, but he also had some pretty interesting positioning in some of those late game team fights. He was isolating himself from his team, which, you know, as a weapon power carry with no defensive capabilities, you can't afford to do that. And honestly, that last team fight, I feel like was kind of on Caroz's shoulders.
Yeah, a little bit of it. I mean, there was a fight earlier where it was a similar situation where Caroz kind of was caught out on their own, but was able to trade the Celeste. In that last team fight, there wasn't that trade opportunity available,
Yep.
so definitely positioning something that could be improved for sure. Another thing I wouldn't mind seeing changed as we get the first couple of bans in for game number 2 was they put so much of a focus on where the farm was going. You know, we saw Bastion had 80 plus CS, whereas and that was on Arden,
Yeah.
whereas then the Batiste was sitting on like 20 CS. And the builds, if you're going to do that, I feel like the Arden needs to provide a little bit more damage to a team fight, whereas otherwise give some more of that farm to Batiste, let him get a little bit more damage in these fights going down, because the defensive utility items, they don't cost as much, and
Yeah,
you can get
certainly
those a
true.
lot easier than you can the damaging.
Especially when on Batiste, you're wanting things like a Dragon Eye and a Shatterglass.
Yeah.
These are the most expensive items in the game. Let's take a look at how the draft has been going so far. Bans, relatively standard. Fortress was mixed in there as well, which means Reza has been let through for first pick. And then a double captain pickup for Azura. Once again, Arden and Flicker.
I mean, we've
But ain't
seen
broke,
a
don't
lot of
fix
these.
it.
Well, they didn't have the Arden last time, so it is a slight change. Arden was on the side of Exceed in game 1. So, but it is still the heavy captain focus that we saw. They had 3 captains last game. 3 of them were building as full captains, no offensive items, and that was the Adagio, the Flicker, and the Finn, with just 2 carries. And now they're kind of hiding those carries and saying, you know what? We're going to let you guess at what we're going to try and pick up to round this out. And so looks like Exceed answers with, you know what? We'll just take all the carries then, as they grab themselves a Celeste to go along with the Reza. Looking for maybe this Adagio, maybe going to switch it up. They're going to go for the Churnwalker, which had a lot of impact last game.
The Churnwalker, I'm typically a fairly large critic of Churnwalkers. Often it feels like he doesn't have a huge impact. In that game, though, definitely was a very valuable pick. I think Churnwalker can be very hit and miss. Sometimes it can be an absolute carry of a captain. Sometimes it can just feel like a waste of a pick, but definitely was impressed in game number 1. I'm excited to see more of it. Samuel going to be locked in. He was one of our trending picks. Incredibly strong in the mid lane. You have to have something to follow up on his damage, though, because Samuel has that classic issue of being able to do a lot of damage, but not finishing off the kills.
Yeah, and he's also very much that last hero alive in a team fight because he has so much sustain. So you need someone to help him out to get those kills, so that when he is sustaining, when he is lasting long in these fights, when he's trying to clean up at the very end, it's just a little bit of health that the opponents have left for him to burn through. But they do grab the Arden as well, so this is still going to be that very heavy captain focus we already talked about with that first rotation, and now getting themselves the Lorelei to go with those 2. Another one of those heroes that can be built offensively, but can also be built as a pure captain.
Yeah, so just a weapon power carry to be finished off with here. Gwen has been very popular at the minute. I think that's a fine lock-in to round out that composition. On the side of Exceed, though, we have a pretty aggressive composition, honestly, despite the fact there's a Celeste that, you got a Reza and a Skye. They love to bounce around.
I actually want to say that I love the fact that they took the Skye and put it on Caroz. We talked about his positioning. If there's any hero that can get you out of a bad positioning situation, it's Skye. So that's I feel like that might be one of those adjustments that's kind of made as, we need to be able to reposition in these fights if you do get caught out. So here's your opportunity to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, Webpower Skye has been incredibly strong recently. But let's take a look at our Poker Go format for the tournament. We have 5 weeks of play. We're already into week number 3. This is a single elimination best of 3 format, which means whoever loses this game is going to be out of the tournament, and whoever wins is going to be moving on to our semi-finals. The winner, obviously, of the entire tournament will be crowned the best in Europe or North America. But we can also take a look at what is on the line for these guys. We'll take a look at our Dollar Shave Club prize pool, as we have $5,000 available for each of these regions.
Yeah, $3,000 going to the first place team in each region. Obviously, that's enough to be a motivator, but there's also that pride on the line of being named the first VPL Open champion in 5v5 Vainglory.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being able to say that you were the first top team, but it's about time we get on into this round of 16 game. It's Team Azura versus Exceed. I'm going to pass it back to Scoundrel Flash X to take it away.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to what is essentially the European Rumble in the Jungle. It is another major level 1 fiesta between Exceed and Azure, and Kuroz. Suri strikes his way to death right at the start here. I mean, this is just some insane level 1 action here, Flash.
Asura not wasting any time getting things started. Flicker so strong in these level 1 engagements. You can't really tell where he is. Obviously, the dude loves to go invisible. Sky getting caught out because of it. Exceed, though, able to secure their weapon power buff. I'm pretty surprised that Asura didn't try and press that advantage a little bit harder. You saw Jessus and Hunter RX go back for the crystal buff, and they're just going to rotate back. So a little bit slower of the start, not the 7 kills that we had last time, but still, we got a kill on the board, a little bit back and forth. Both teams just looking to secure their jungles early on.
Thank God my voice needs a rest, Flash, after that last game. I think it looked like Hunter and Jessus were concerned with their own CP buff, so they didn't commit to the full weapon power invade. And that ended up sort of ensuing what you saw there, which was just a 3-man half-hearted attempt at a steal from that weapon power buff, which was able to be secured. And actually, everybody gets their own jungles at the end of the day. After that sort of crazy level 1 start, everybody ends up getting their own jungles. Baby Groot and Kuroz here putting pressure onto Noiso and Nomo. I'm just going to say it like that. And again, they managed to get that early lead versus him in the lane last time round, but didn't really convert it into anything meaningful. It looked like Baby Groot was actually doing some proxy farming, setting up the waves for Kuroz, and just constantly pressuring this guy into turret.
Yeah, definitely some back and forth action. Samuel getting caught very low down in the mid lane. He goes down. Great pickup by Celeste to find that kill. Really great play by I Love Shy on the Turnwalker to pull him back into that last heliogenesis. That's the kind of Turnwalker mechanics I like to see. Evening up the kills. Tricky and Bruto going to look for a little bit of an early engage in this top jungle. We got to talk about the drafts, though. Definitely, I think, a very even composition. A lot of this is going to come down to just execution by both teams. Tricky and Bruto positioning pretty heavily aggressively up in this top lane, making sure that Bastion isn't farming for free. But yeah, in these heroes, in these compositions, to have Samuel go down like that so early on is very surprising to me, because he's the mid laner that, in my opinion, is the strongest. With the drifting darks and the sustain, it is so hard for enemy teams to try and deal with it.
Yeah, and also if you look at the composition from Azure, if you've got a Gwen and a Samuel, you're not going to be outscaling a Celeste and a weapon power Sky. So you have to get that advantage in the mid game. You have to try and convert. I mean, Samuel does okay in the late game, but compared to the Sky, the Gwen is going to start to fall off. An aggressive push here. Hunter actually having to boots out. Kuroz is pushing forward. Another big engage happening around this weapon power buff. They're stacked up on a heliogenesis here. They have to be so careful. Tricky on that front line, trying to do what he can. Has to pop the flask. Noiso and Nomo just in that front line on the Arden. A stray kill goes over to the Samuel here, and I think Azure will call that a win.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not really sure who took the gold tramp, but it doesn't really matter because they were able to pick up that kill. Hunter RX going so low, able to punish the Reza for going in too deep. Baby Group gonna want to have that one back.
Kuroz, hello, Kuroz. He ends up going down, does pick up the Lorelei though, I suppose, but you really didn't need to take a 1-for-1 trade at that point in time. Maybe he just wanted to get back to base quicker.
Yeah, as a carry, trying to trade yourself for what's arguably seen is kind of more of a utility style hero. I'm not sure that that's necessarily the trade that Kuroz wants to look for. No Soy Unomo being an absolute menace in the downside jungle. Baby Groot, though, on this res are going to be able to chase him down. I don't think he's getting out of that one, but he does manage.
Tree on.
Yeah, that's going to be the difference maker right there. Arden just so tanky. Baby Groot being a little bit more passive after his overstep on the last play.
Yeah, Baby Groot trying to meet him here at this at this jungle shop. And Noiso and Nomo, he doesn't have much, but Baby Groot did not have that second dash to commit. He couldn't capitalize on his A if he tried to proc it, and that is going to be Noiso and Nomo. He doesn't back off, though. He's actually just going to sit under turret and try and farm a bit more. Actually forced to use the healing flask, and Kuroz tries to dive this one out. Not sure Kuroz wanted to commit too hard there, and Noiso and Nomo is just going to happily farm up this wave with that Storm Guard banner and the double weapon blade that he's got in his inventory as well.
Yeah, that's actually can pack quite the punch. Literally going so... He almost trades it out. He needs to be careful, though. The forward barrage, if that was on target, may have taken him down.
Kuroz was trying to, I think, try and bait that one out, but we have another fight here. A kill goes over to Samuel, the Celeste, backing off very quickly with Baby Groot, and suddenly Azure. They have definitely got the better mid-game composition, so if they can capitalize from this point forward, if they get to 10 minutes and they have maybe half an item advantage on their carries, they can probably push this one very easily. They have to be careful, though. You look in the top lane, Grace has got Pulse Weave already. Bastion has literally had no one in his lane. He has just been chilling, farming for free, and has got a significant lead over his opposing number on Noiso and Nomo.
What a name! What a name to try and say. But yeah, there you go. Hey, that's a good way to shorten it. But yeah, Asura finding this Ghost Wing capture early on, even though Bastion on the Grace has been relatively uncontested. It might not be what Exceed wants this early on, because they are starting to get quite a bit behind. 3K Flicker gonna pop the Moon Cloak, potentially looking for an engagement. This is where things that could just get blown wide open.
Oh, that's a massive engage by Bruto. Baby Groot goes down very quickly. That's another kill going over to Azura. And if there is a team that has made Flicker look good, it is definitely Azura. Bruto plays this all the time in solo queue as well. And for those of you that don't know, there's a lot of kind of notable players on these teams. Ponchik, or Ilahuk, as you might see him on your screen. He is a very notable European solo queue player, has had some experience at competitive level as well. He was known for his Celeste in 3v3, by the way, so putting him onto Celeste is very interesting. You can see Tricky, by the way, who had a massive break from competitive. You might have seen him at some of the Unified Western Live Finals last year, played with I'm the Doom, I believe. He's back, and he's on this team playing really well on this Gwen as well.
Asura taking full advantage of this Ghost Wing buff. Gonna have no problem taking down that top turret, immediately turning things on to Bastion. Gwen finding the ult. Not gonna be able to pick up the kill, though.
She still had ultimate. It would have been a very tough ask for Tricky at this point with just the Serpent's Mask as Bastion jumps in. Bruto is there, however. Ponchik making his way over. Bruto might be forced to use that ultimate. Yes, he is. However, it's okay for Tricky to continue. On to Ponchik now, popping his own flask. Bruto trying to do what he can in that front line to be annoying. Body blocks the ultimate from the Celeste, and Tricky is still going, but I Love Shy there with the chains should be able to shore this one up for his team. Tricky, with the new Gwen B, has a massive burst of speed, but that is not enough to get him out of there. And Ponchik and I Love Shy specifically will pick up a double kill. How did the Arden pick up a kill?
That's a great question. I'm not really sure how he was able to that trade, but he'll be happy with it, sitting at 4, 1, and 3. Just so much happening in all parts of the map right now. Very hard for both of these teams to figure out how exactly they want to start executing this macro play. Asura still with the control, the tempo of the game, continuing to kind of just exert their early game dominance, while Exceed still looking to scale up, get some of these heroes to their later game power spikes. Celeste most notably hit that level 8. She's got the Spellfire online. Flicker gonna drop the Moon Cloak though, potentially look for another engage.
Well, they've dropped it to the top lane to try and get that Grace, who did end up trading the turret. A turret for her life is really not the worst thing in the world. It really depends what Tricky and Bruto can make out of this. There is another grouping up around the Ghost Wing right now. Jessis has taken a lot of damage. A great stun from the Lorelei will stop I Love Shy, who doesn't manage to land that hook. On to Jessis there. In comes Tricky, frontline Gwen, slam dunks Kuroz. Huge amount of damage in the front line, and Bruto has now found the engage. A stun goes through the pickoff onto Churnwalker, who I think was caught by surprise from that Gwen damage. And another heavy aggressive engage coming out from Azure here. Bruto leading the charge. And I think this is enough to force Azure to back off. As I think Baby Groot wants some. Justice will get the Lorelei shield though. Start to heal up from that Samuel ultimate. Another kill goes over to Bruto, who has been a monster on this flicker. He has been absolutely insane this game. And Azure now in a position to potentially go for Ghostwing.
Jessus, not necessarily a name that I'm personally too familiar with. He was so strong in the Celeste in that last game, looking so good with his positioning on Samuel here in this game. He's gonna go low, but still not taking down Asura, backing up his team. And of course, the barrier you get from Ghostwing coming in right in the nick of time, being able to help keep his team alive. Asura Tricky going in hot.
Oh my word, this new Gwen B, by the way, is insane. He has just burnt it though, so that means he's not going to be in a situation to use it again, but Bruto, the savior on this flicker, comes in and slows everybody down, and Tricky with that breaking point is starting to stack up. Pulled into a Heliogenesis range, but will get the speed buff from the Lorelei. I love this new Gwen B, by the way. It just makes her so aggressive. You can dive that backline really easily with one tap of the B and get that burst damage off, and that's what she's been doing in a lot of these fights.
Yeah, pairing that with her boomstick perk allows her to just go in, figure out whatever backline carry she wants to try and go for, and just put in a huge burst of damage that they really need to be careful of, and especially because so many of these backline carries don't have too much defense. With Gwen having the breaking point, that's a tremendous amount of breaking point stacks that she gets to start off these fights, which is really good and definitely going to be pretty important to making sure that she can continue to apply damage as she kites back. One thing that I really like from Azura in this composition, though, that I'm pretty sure they took into account, because Exceed was able to pick up the Churnwalker, Azura was really smart in making sure they kept a lot of their damage in backline ranged carries, keeping them out of Churnwalker's hands, making it much harder for him to land hooks, and he's going to get engaged onto.
Oh, that was the ultimate there that will get him out. They're going to get on to the Lorelei. Oh, no, even the Flicker, but Flicker is just so tanky. That's a brilliant stun from Tricky, but he's in that front line by himself, trying to do what he can versus Kurose. I don't think he'll be able to trade. Oh, he trades! He trades, and he is sustaining with that Lorelei shield as well. Baby Groot going to go down. How is Tricky still alive? That Serpent's Mask with the breaking point stacks really coming into their own right now. I have no idea how he survived that, but he did. And Tricky even going to steal the weapon power buff just to rub salt in the wounds.
Water wall, that was absolutely clutch coming out of Hunter RX to keep Tricky alive. Not only is he getting that barrier and that shield, making him, you know, super tanky, giving him more time to regen from his Serpent's Mask, but it's negating all of the CC that Exceed is trying to put onto the Gwen. Definitely critical for keeping him alive in the team fight. It's sort of looking like they want more, though.
I've got a couple of things to talk about after this team fight, by the way, as that might be an overextend. The Arden goes down. Bruto also, but a nice Crucible will block a lot of that damage coming out from the Celeste. Bruto might give up his life here. Yes, he will. It really now depends what Exceed can do with that. Can they convert that to a Ghostwing spawning in just a few moments? They also have the Black Claw to think about as well. A nice overextend, or a bad overextend rather, coming out from Azure, as that is going to be the Grace looking for the engage. Hunter doing what he can. The Took is going to land, and now Jessus versus the World. I don't know if he's got what it takes. He's going very low. He gets a kill onto Baby Groot, who's literally hard inting this game. He's now going to go for Ghostwing. That was definitely a kill that he didn't need to go over. So a couple of things that I wanted to raise over to you as they go for Ghostwing here. Baby Groot, 272, massively behind in his item spikes, only hit an Aftershock, went for the Stormguard banner, I think because he was jungling, but I'm not sure how much I like Stormguard banner on jungle Reza, simply because you usually duo most of the jungle these days. And the other thing, look at the Arden build. I didn't notice this until about 2 or 3 minutes ago. That is not top lane Arden that we know and love.
No, it's not. Most of the time we do get that utility out of a top lane Arden. This game, though, no Soy Unomo feeling like, hey, I want to pack a punch, and packing a punch. He is indeed the Sorrow Blade Tyrant's Monocle combination. So much damage from his Blood for Bloods. And the biggest thing too is when this is a, you know, kind of untraditional off the meta build, it's something that's very hard for your team to really play against and understand. Azura finding the engage they want in the top side of the jungle, though.
That was a nice stun. It lands onto Baby Groot, who just manages to ult out of one of the Gwen ultos that will keep him alive, but unfortunately, he left his Celeste as a sacrificial lamb. The Grace ultimate is not going to do everything in this situation, and that is going to allow Tricky now, who's a frontline Gwen, a massive water wall coming out as well, and nobody can stop this Gwen with all those breaking point stacks. Baby Groot goes in, but he just does no damage. He's basically like a wet towel at this point in time, and Tricky, the frontline tank Gwen, all that damage. They block the ultimate from the Churnwalker. This should be clean up town now for Tricky, who is just chunking left, right, and center, and Team Azure looks so strong right now. They should be able to close this game out pretty soon.
Asura flexing here in game number 2. Game 1, a little bit more back and forth. They need to be careful. They're low, though. That's a sweet spot for Reza. He picks up 1. He's going to try and chase down Flicker for 2.
Don't know how much it's going to mean in the grand scheme of things, though, when you're this far behind. Flicker now stealthed. And Baby Groot is looking for his opportunity. Flicker has used that moon cloak. He's literally stood on top of him. He's going to jump back into that brush. That was sneaky from Bruto, and that's going to keep him alive.
Yeah, great heads-up play by Bruto. Play patiently, use his ult to his biggest benefit, and make sure he gets out of that situation. I am loving what I'm seeing from Asura. I think Bacon might have to go back to his power rankings, put Asura in at that number 3 spot in place of Exceed, especially if the game ends up going their way, which it does. They managed to pick up an armory in that bot lane. They have the cams down in their base if they want to look for a cheeky little backdoor. No one with the teleport boots quite yet. Exceed on the back foot, over 10k gold behind. At this point, it's Asura's game to lose.
I've not seen much of Jessus 27 myself either. He might be a name chase. I'm not sure. I sort of not so used to him. But Tricky being back certainly still got it. He has been an insane player, especially on this Gwen this time round for Asura. But both the carries from this team look really good. Ultimate doesn't quite hit Kuroz there, who hasn't had the best of time on the Weapon Power Sky either. He's 2 and 8 at this point in time. And this is such a massive gold lead for Exceed to try and come back from. I'm not sure what they can do. I think this could be just too hard for them, as that's a massive amount of damage going to Ponchik. Unfortunately, One Punch Man Arden doesn't have the defenses to be able to sustain even just one supernova there. He gets insta-deleted, and that is now a member down for Team Asura.
All right, so this is kind of 2 games in a row that Asura has just thrown away their first Black Claw push. There was no reason for them to lose the Arden that early on. They are 100% losing this engagement. Tricky in super deep.
Are they? Because Tricky's going deep right now, Flash. He is so strong. Breaking point stacks up left, right, and center. He's got that Serpent's Mask as well. It shows that all you need is a 50,000 breaking point stack Gwen and a Serpent's Mask and a Dream, and Asura are going to take the series 2-0.
I spoke too soon. They lost No Soyu Nomo super early on. I thought that they were blowing their chances. I guess they still could have executed much more cleaner, making sure that they were all together on that engagement. But yeah, Tricky, phenomenal game at 9-1-9, and just very close behind him at 8-1-11. Great stuff from Azura.
This might sound like a little bit out there, but I'm going to name Bruto my MVP. I genuinely think this Flicker was insane this series. I genuinely think Bruto was insane this series in this Flicker. It is the first time I've ever seen a Flicker look good in any way, shape, or form. And Pulse Weave, like we said, is the item that's kind of made that happen. Right, that's the first series of the day wrapped up so quickly. Let's see what the desk have to say.
Well, I hold my hands up there. I said Exceed were the favourites coming into this one. In game number 2, Azure have absolutely blown that expectation out of the water.
Yeah, I mean, we knew Tricky was good. Didn't know he was going to be quite this good on 5v5. We hadn't seen him play 5v5. He took a hiatus from competitive Vainglory, and my goodness, did he put on a show.
The crazy thing is, like, yes, when you're playing Kensei, be that aggressive. And then he was like, oh, I'm playing Kensei both games, right? This is Kensei, not Gwen. I'm just going to go straight frontline, dive in there. But the war walls coming on in made it so that he could. His team enabled him to just destroy that entire game.
Yeah, absolutely incredible performance there. And like you said, just having that confidence to be so aggressive and knowing that your team has your back. There's so many times that we've seen players like go super aggressive and then just nobody follows up, and it just makes them look foolish.
Baby Groot
but exactly. But Tricky just had the backup of his team at all times, and it just worked out so well.
Let's take a look at our Razor Phone bracket at the end of that game. Team Azura are going to move on forward, which means they are going to be the first quarterfinalist from this quadrant. That means that they're going to be up against either Queso or Fern Skull Blacker when we get on into that quarterfinal. But let's take a look at our overall round of 16 now. You can see Queso and Fern, that'll be the other game in the B bracket. We already have Clash, Cyclone, Rising Lotus, and Divine Vendetta into the quarterfinals. We just have 3 round of 16 matchups left to go.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that last matchup, I think I'm definitely going to have to make a tweak to those power rankings, maybe put Azura in there. Especially, I mean, if a team's willing to run the full weapon power Arden, that automatically bumps them up a few notches in my book, of course. And, obviously keeping the win streak of it alive, always good to see. But honestly, Team Azura are definitely looking like a threat.
Yeah, absolutely. Azura, I am excited to see go on into their quarterfinal game because I don't want to say it before it's done, but Team Queso definitely a heavy favorite in their round of 16 game. Azura versus Queso, that is a matchup I'm excited for. Theoretically, Fern's still in the tournament. Don't want to say it too soon. Let's have a quick word from Razor, though, before we move into our next matchup. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are still here in the beautiful city of Las Vegas. You can see the skyline right in front of you right there. But we are in the Aria Resort and Casino in the Poker Go studio for week number 3 of the Vainglory Premier League Summer Open. My name is Munchballs. I'm joined as ever by Tasty Bacon. We're going to be jumping into our next matchup of the day. This is our Play Big matchup as we have Team Queso going up against Fern Skull Blacker now. Team Queso finally making their debut here in the VPL.
Yeah, and this is one of those times where we talk about, teams need to have strong games, need to kind of dominate their opponents. This is one of those instances.
Absolutely, and going into this matchup, we had some words with Hundor in our Razor phone.
Hello guys, it's Hundor from Team Queso here, and I'm personally really excited to play in the VPL this weekend, since it's the first real competitive match in so long. And everyone of the team is also excited to play. We're missing Techno JJ this weekend, but Heckman is there to fill a spot. And the practice went really well. We're winning most of our scrims. And yeah, we're really excited to win this weekend.
And that was Hundor, obviously confident coming on into the tournament, and rightly so, because let's just take a moment to think about this roster for Queso. You've got Hundor, who's one of the most legendary carries in Europe, basically of all time. Tyra's in the jungle, who, I mean, we were discussing this before the show today. You were saying you believe Tyra's was the best jungler in Europe in 3v3.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a team that was put together to be this super team, this all-star roster, combining a couple of different teams to bring them together and take first place in Europe, and they showed it in the preseason. They were absolutely dominant. Their only loss being in the very first week of the preseason against Clash, which they were then able to avenge later on. So this is the team that has all of the momentum behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can take a look at those games from the preseason in our Rockstar Rewind. And as you said, they had a great preseason, but it started off a little bit shaky. In their first game against Clash, they actually lost out. But the key thing is that the next time they met, they had improved. They grew as a team over the course of the preseason. Obviously, this is the clip of them losing out to Clash. Now, this is the clip of them managing to take them on.
Yeah, it almost felt like they, Clash caught them by surprise. Because coming into the preseason, they were the team that was expected to be dominant. They were expected to be the #1 team. And so Clash's performance, obviously people expected Clash to be good. People didn't expect Clash to be that good. And so I feel like there was that surprise factor that was able to come in for them. But then once the Queso saw what Clash brought to the table, they just never looked back. And there wasn't even really any team that gave them a threat throughout the preseason. They were dominant in every single one of their games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing I need to bring up when we're talking about Queso is the fact that this isn't actually full roster right now. Techno JJ is on holiday. For those of you who don't know, Techno JJ used to be on Fnatic back in 3v3, long time pro, widely renowned as one of the best carries in the whole of Europe, kind of arguing between him and Hundor. He's on holiday right now, which means Hegman is going to be going into the mid lane. Now, Hegman has a history as a captain player, so it could be an interesting dynamic stepping on into the mid lane, but support mid laners are a thing in other MOBAs as well. Maybe that's something we could see coming on through, but also, like, let's bear in mind, these guys all play solo queue. Everyone has to play every role at the end of the day. Hegman is a very competent player. I expect good things from him.
Yeah, no one at the top level of Vainglory only plays one role exclusively and can't switch to the other ones. They may not be as proficient. You know, Hegman may not be as proficient as a mid laner as he is as a captain, but he still knows how to play those heroes. He knows how to play as a carry, and you know, he still has the rest of King Queso around him that can kind of lift him up if need be and pick him up if he does start to struggle a little bit. You just start to focus your gold onto someone else instead.
Let's take a look at some of our European major players here. We've got Keanu Nakoa on Sly, obviously long-time veteran EU captain and one of the most well-renowned European players. Baby Groot was one of my major players. He didn't play today, and maybe that's the reason Exceed ended up losing out their series, honestly.
It very well could be. I mean, there was obviously some moments there with Kuros where he looked strong, but there was definitely moments where he was caught out of position. We also don't know about the shot calling, but then, of course, rounding out the major players is coming up, as we're going to see Hundor. You know, the hero pool is one of those things that you can talk about with him. He likes to play some less conventional picks as far as what everyone else was. You know, in 3v3, it was Baron was the Hundor pick.
Yeah.
That was, if you didn't ban Baron against Hundor, you were losing the game.
I think he was also like the top EU Celeste as well.
Yep.
He loved to play, but basically the hyper carries later on into the game. That was his real comfort zone. We are into the draft though. It's time to kick this series off. Queso versus Fern Skull Blacker. Let's talk a little bit about Fern Skull Blacker because we've not really touched on them just yet. They have had a good tournament so far.
Yeah, they were able to get the win in a 3-game set in their play-in game. So again, you know, they had to fight through a little bit of struggles to get there. They've shown that they can come back after a loss. They can rebound. They don't beat themselves up over it. So that's obviously a big bonus for a team. But at the end of the day, you are still looking up against Queso on the other side of the rise. And I'm open to being surprised. I am absolutely open. I would love to see Fern Skull Blacker take the fight to Queso and really make Queso worry. But I just don't expect to see it.
I think if you're looking at Fern Skull Blacker, if you guys are fans at home, Attendix was the guy that really stood out to me last time we saw these guys play. So hopefully we'll get a good carry in his hands and we'll see what can come out once we get onto the map. But let's take a look at our bans so far. Flicker and Fortress could have been banned away by Queso, leaving those major power picks open for their first pickup. Reza will be taken off the board. Now Fern Skull Blacker deciding Kensei is the next most important.
Yeah, and this is going to obviously leave Kinetic open, and that Kinetic will get grabbed immediately. Now, what do Fern Skull Blacker answer with? Because usually you see the Kensei and Kinetic get left both open so that you can take one of them while your opponents get one, but with obviously not having the Kinetic on the board, now they have to find out what they want to answer with. The Anka is there, but we haven't really seen the Anka do very well.
You, man, when Anka is banned like 80% of games, the 20% she's not banned, teams seem terrified to pick her up. There are very few teams that seem confident enough with that pick. It's like everyone's scared of her. No one actually wants to use the pick itself. It's kind of an interesting dynamic. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Queso could pick that later on in their rotation.
I was just going to say, I feel like it's a pick that needs to, if it is going to come out, comes out later in the draft. Because if you pick it early, the counters for it are there. The counters for it, it's one of those situations where, going back to 3v3, there was that time when Blackfeather was just a dominant counter to Celeste, so that you didn't pick Celeste unless you took Blackfeather off the board. And sometimes we saw Celeste get through drafts, even though she was still considered one of the best carries. I think Anka's in a similar situation, but
Let's take a moment here to talk about this Grumpjaw, because Grumpjaw so far this season has been picked only by Tribe and Clash. We now have another top team standing up in the draft, and they immediately lock in Grumpjaw. Maybe these teams know something that nobody else does, because so far it's 100% win rate. I just chalk that down to the fact that it was Tribe and Clash play.
Yeah, well, that may still be the case. Like, maybe they don't pick it up against teams that they perceive as stronger opponents, but Grumpjaw, I think, is still a very strong pick. He does do a lot of damage early. We've seen actually a lot of these games kind of swing and hinge on this early game. And so if you bring that early pressure to the table, like the Grumpjaw does, like you have with the Tony now as well, it can either A, just snowball you through the rest of the game, or B, can shore up some of the weaknesses early on, like something like a Kinetic has, you know, so that you don't just get invaded and destroyed early on. So I actually really like the Grumpjaw.
I mean, most importantly, you can eat someone and teleport back to your farm. So that's a big
We
thumbs
still
up
haven't
from
seen
me.
it yet. We've seen the teleport boots on
started
Grumpjaw,
preseason.
but we haven't seen the full amazing Grumpjaw teleport. But it's still just a very useful pick again for early game pressure.
Absolutely. So Lance and Maleen going to be locked in here as well as Arden. So 3 captains on the side of Fernskull Blacker and then Maleen. And over on Queso, we've got the Vox locked in as well as Tony. We might just be rounding this out with an Adagio. So not the tankiest team in the world, honestly, from Queso, but a very snowbally team.
Very snowbally team, very much an early aggressive team. Like their level 1 is actually extremely strong. You have stuns coming out from Tony. You have the Vox that can just get the damage spreading to your entire team. You have the Adagio who can provide heals. And of course, Grumpjaw's just early damage presence is massive. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do try and go aggressive, especially against a Maleen who doesn't have the strongest of early games. There's a lot of defense, a lot of protection. You know, the Lance and the Finn you got to be careful of. But I feel like this is going to be a game where Queso wants to go aggressive right from the start.
Absolutely. Blackfeather going to be the last pickup for Fernskull Blacker. So exciting pick there. We'll see if he can make the plays. Well, let's take a look at our Razor rosters for these 2 teams jumping on into this series. We'll start off by taking a look at Queso. These guys are going to be coming in strong. In fact, let's take a look at Fernskull Blacker first. We've got Saphira, Dawn, Glader, Silver Skull, and Attendix. They had a great series in the play-ins. Let's see if they can bring that to the main tournament.
Yeah, we're going to have to see some of these guys step up in a big way if they're going to want to take down Queso. Let's also get a look at that Queso roster as we speak, and they're going to be Tetno JJ, Hundor, Palmatoro, Tyrus, and PRZ. But as you alluded to earlier, Tetno JJ is not going to be starting for them today. It is going to be Hegman in his place instead. So is that going to shake things up at all? I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be enough to really be like, you're not looking at this roster and going like, oh boy, that's our way in. Like, Hegman is still an incredibly good player.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, even if they're in a situation where they're worried about him, just play safe and let the rest of the team carry. We're about ready to jump on into this one, though. It's going to be Queso up against Fernskull Blacker. Queso's debut here on Sovereign's Rise in the VPL. It's time to pass it over to our casters and get into game number 1.
Boom! Oh wait, I'm a scoundrel, not Flash. Right, we're into this game now between Fern and Queso. This is obviously going to be a Queso-favored matchup, and again, this 5-man stack in the mid lane, which seems to have transpired over the last couple of weeks to where the meta has shifted to a massive weapon power invade coming out right now. Silver Skull's going to get caught out. He's surely going to go down. Another big team fight to kick things off here in this series, and it should be an easy weapon power take for Queso.
Classic EU fashion, getting things started nice and early. I love the early game aggression a lot. Okay, so we need to touch on something important. Not only is Tetno JJ out, which is a huge disadvantage for the side of Queso, but PRZ also had a last-minute emergency. So old man Bayou, the coach of Queso, having to step in here, step into the mix. He has not competed in a very long time. So while Fernskull Blacker has a very large uphill battle here in this game, Queso has kind of left the door open without 2 of their main players on that starting roster not able to be in today's matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. I think whilst Bayou is old man Bayou, he's losing Vainglory skill as quickly as he's growing hair. It's joking. I love Bayou. He does play a lot on stream, so he is obviously playing very, sort of fairly high level Vainglory on a day-to-day basis. And if you give him Adagio or Arden top, he's not going to in. So he's got those heroes. I think Bayou's ready to rock.
Yeah,
he's actually playing support. Don't get me wrong. Sorry, yeah, because Perez is not playing. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely the support Adagio is super strong in this matchup. And like you said, not only does he play a lot on stream, you guys should definitely go check that out, but being the coach of Queso, I'm sure he attends a lot of their scrims. He's very familiar with these rotations, with the meta. Being the coach of such a prestigious team in Europe, you definitely have the credentials to be able to step into these shoes and fill them whenever necessary. And certainly, I mean, he has a lot of competitive experience back in his day, going all the way back to like 2015. I was in South Korea with him for VIPL, had a ton of fun hanging out with him over there. And yeah, he's been around the block, a lot of experience with SK Gaming, most notably now with this queso roster. He's got to step up big here, though, in today's game.
He's a bit of a lad, not gonna lie. I love hanging out with Bayou when I get the chance. And what I really liked about what queso just did is they unified their backs. They picked up some small tier 1 item advantages with those heavy steals, and they went straight again for a weapon power invade. Another big engage by Palmatoro. There's the damage coming out from Hundor. Surely Dawn gonna go down here too. And they are utilizing those item spikes.
Yeah, 3k gold, 3 minutes in. That's exactly what queso wants. Grumchod, not a hero that we've seen yet today, but a hero that is so strong in the meta. The buff to his living armor makes him so tanky. He can go under turret just like that. Put up some good damage, not able to find the kill there. But yeah, Grumchod, definitely a hero that Fernsco Blacka gonna have to watch out for. And if they're not careful, he can definitely be very, very punishing.
I think Grumjaw's in an excellent place in the meta right now. I'd rank him as one of my top laners. I also think he's probably pretty decent in the jungle too. I overall just think Grumjaw's just in a really good space right now, and you can see going to share this gold across with Hegman, who has moved away from that support position that's been given over to Bayou, and Hegman playing CP Vox in the mid lane here. Silver Skull and Dawn just going to take away that healing camp, and Palmaturu going to meander his way back towards that top lane.
Yeah, queso has got to be feeling good about how this early game has gone. Hegman, again, traditionally the support player stepping into these carry shoes. CP Vox, also not a carry that we have seen too much thus far in the VPL. He actually got a few nerfs in update 3.6. His resonance bounce damage being scaled down just a little bit, is packing a little bit too much of a punch. But in this composition, 4 melees, and then Maline, who as a ranged hero has such short range, that's something that Fernsco Blacka, it's going to be very hard for them to position here in these team fights. Otherwise, Vox might just have a field day.
Timing down to a T once more. Tier 3 items picked up across the board for queso on another respawn of this weapon buff. They absolutely time this like madmen. And Hundor is going to walk away with another weapon power steal as well. They are just miles ahead in terms of item advantage at this point in time in the game too. And you can see, I mean, it's been a low action game, but we are 4K in queso's pocket.
Yeah, queso looking like the epitome of efficiency, just understanding these rotations so well. Fernsco Blacka completely on the back foot. Tony even picking up a kill in that topside jungle. Tyra's looking for more on his Silver Skull. Great bada boom.
Yeah, and Palmatoro should be able to clean this up really nicely. We'll have his A up in just a few moments time. Across the wall, slam dunk, and that is going to be a kill onto the Lance too. Tony is an interesting one. You know, I thought he had some much needed nerfs to his A. I thought it just did way too much base damage from the back of that. But if you get Spell Sword and you pack a bit more weapon power into your build, it actually starts to scale back up quite nicely. I'm wondering whether Tyrus plays it safe, or we see a bit more of an aggressive Tony coming out from him.
He's so tanky with that taunt and just his perk in general that it's a hero that you can afford to get a lot of his damage. I think, granted, we do see a lot more utility style Tonys. Tyrus, he does already have the Spell Sword completed. He is going to be looking to get very involved in this front line. And again, having the CP Vox in the back line pretty much enables Tony or Grumchod to just go straight in, wreak a bunch of havoc. The fights are going to be centered around these two heroes, and queso just in that back line. Their back line carries, and Hundor on the kinetic and Hegman on the Vox are going to be able to put up a ton of damage.
I feel like we often talk about compositions in these games, but I really don't feel like it matters what queso bring to the table. They are just such a well-polished team. They could probably play Flicker in every single position and still come out with a win, you know? It's
That is definitely possible. I don't fault you there. Ghost Swing on the map now. I think that's one thing that we saw Clash do really well last week is when Ghost Swing came online, they grouped and positioned incredibly well as a team to take it right away. Maybe with this kill or attempted kill on Arden in the bot lane, that might be the opening that Queso needs in order to just go for it.
Clean kill as well. Hundor picks that up. He is now working towards what looks to be a breaking point. I imagine he's going to go Spell Sword into breaking point here. Crystal Trio being invaded again. I don't know if Fern have had a single one of their own buffs this game. They're going to engage onto Tendix in the mid lane and force to pop that flask very early. A quick cleanup around that mid lane tier 1, and this should be Queso taking the Crystal Trio and probably going for Ghost Wing, like you said.
Yeah, poor Fern. Definitely, you know that you're going up against such a talented team like Queso. You can often get inside your own head, psych yourself out, really, just not put yourself in a good mental state. Now we are going to have Queso start up this Ghost Wing. That's exactly what they needed to do. The other lanes are pushed out. Fern not in a place at all to try and contest this. We're almost at a 10k gold lead, and we're not even 10 minutes into the game yet.
And not even 10 kills into the game yet either. This has just been pure map dominance from Queso, and unfortunately Fern could do nothing about it. Again, Arden, gauntlets out of the way. Tony takes a bit of damage there, but Tyrus should be able to back off pretty nicely. I got a question for you actually, Flash. Because this game is I don't want to say it's over, but it's kind of over. What was it like for you as TSM when you were at the World Championships and you were playing like a team like Ace, and everybody thought that they were just miles better than the competition? They thought there was no way in hell that a North American or a European team could get those wins. How was it for you facing up a team against like that? Because obviously for Fern, that's a situation that they probably find themselves in now, obviously to a lesser extent with less on the line. What did you have to do going into those games?
Yeah, I mean, you just gotta have to trust in your preparation. I always felt like we were in a good space mentally going into a lot of games. I mean, Vainglory, one of the most confident players in the history of Vainglory. If Chuck and I ever had any doubts, he was there to kind of, hype us up, get us ready, prepare us. I don't think that there was ever a situation that we felt like we were at a disadvantage or going to lose. Granted, things didn't necessarily work out too well for us in 2017, especially at the live events. But I mean, our preparation and really just regular season dominance always gave us the confidence and the motivation we needed to be able to be ready to, fight and take down some of these higher, more well-known foreign teams for sure.
Yeah, and I think in this situation now, Fern are going to have to dig deep and grab some of the FlashX TSM juice. I was going to say mojo, but I guess juice. Nah, juice doesn't make any sense either. I'm just going to cut that sentence there.
It's all right. It happens.
Sorry, Flashmate. Sorry, Flashmate. I kind of threw you in that one. My bad.
That's okay.
I won't start selling it. I won't start peddling it. I think we'll leave that one at the door. Although in Twitch chat, if you want some of FlashX's TSM juice, just let us know. Just type in chat FlashX juice.
All right. That's gonna be the new meme in the Vainglory. FlashX juice. Queso though, looking so strong. 12.
Oh, they must have had some FlashX juice actually.
They did. They drank all the FlashX juice. They were ready for it.
Did they Flash? I see. Okay.
They're just absolutely dominating Fern School Blocker right now. There's not much Fern can really do but sit and wait their pending doom, death, and gloom. Queso relentless pushing in this top lane. They are not giving Fern any room to even remotely make a comeback into this game. Turrets going down left and right, finding kills left and right. It's Queso looking very, very polished here in this game number 1.
I feel for this Lance, by the way. That's a big pull. Doesn't get blocked by Bayou, or whoever had the Crucible. I think that was Bayou trying to Crucible it a little bit too late, but it doesn't matter because the damage isn't there to follow it up. I feel for this Lance. When you're playing Lance and you're behind and you go for an impale and you miss, you just there like, what has my life become? Yeah, my life is this now. That's how I know how it feels. I have been a 0-6 Lance in a game before. Especially when I played Lance for the first time on PC. I was like, what is this? How do I play Lance on PC?
Yeah, it's rough stuff. Palmatoro he started up this Ghost Swing all by himself. That's going to be a huge buff for them to pick up. Blacklaw on the map now. I would not be surprised if we just saw Queso push out their lanes, Kinetic pushing out that bottom lane. They're gonna be able to secure this go swing. I would expect them to go straight for Black Claw, try and pick that objective up, and they can pretty much just end the game with how far ahead they are at just 12 minutes in.
It feels like the game's been going on longer, but like you said, we are just only 12 minutes into this one. Queso looking to push down this mid lane. There is a split push coming in from Dawn, who has working towards that breaking point. A little bit too late at that point. Hegman overextended here. Does manage to block out the Githyu Maul. That is an early fountain from Bio, but necessary to keep Hegman alive as Tyra's now taunts them up. Those resonance bounces really starting to do work, and Tyra's forced to back away. But as is the rest of Fern. That was a rotate by Hundor to deal with the Black Feather. Not, I don't know, maybe not entirely necessary. I think they could have shoved this mid lane a bit harder, but like you see, the resonance bounce is coming out now, and Fern just can't deal with it.
Yeah, it's so tough. Having that taunt with Tony, the slow from Adagio's Gift of Fire, that's so hard to deal with. Palmatoro and Hundor not even there to do anything. They secure the Black Claw. Tony all by himself. Queso has looked so clean up until this point. Hopefully their Black Claw push is going to continue to look clean as well. They just don't want to get caught out of position.
They've got so many item spikes over their opponents. 3 item Vox, 3 item Kinetic. Tony now with all of that defensive there as well, and Bayou working towards a what looks to be a heavy prism. I'm wondering where he goes for a Spellfire or just a Shatterglass off the back of that. It might not ever get to that point. The Gauntlet comes through. This is the last ditch engage from Fern, but the damage is just too strong. The resonance bounces chunk them down, and Hundor moving through like a sniper on a mission is going to help clean up the rest of that composition. And Fnatic now, they're going to take that last kill. They're going to take the game. Okay, not Fnatic. Every time I cast Palmatoro, because he's got FNC before his name, I say Fnatic. Every time.
Yeah, they need to get the Queso tags on.
I know. It's like Fnatic has not been a thing for so long, and Palmatoro hasn't been on Fnatic for so long. But because he's got FNC Palmatoro, because I've cast League for so long, anytime I see FNC, I just say Fnatic, and oh wait, no, this is not Fnatic, it's Queso. Queso take this 1-0 though, Flash. Again, we could probably tit for tat about what actually happened here, but realistically, this is just Queso doing Queso things. Desk, how do you make that?
What a game coming out from Queso. Absolute show of dominance. Not quite a perfect game. They lost a couple of turrets, but other than that, they had complete control of everything.
Yeah, and this is what we said before, and this is one of those games where you almost have to come out and dominate your opponent just to show that you are still this top team. And, you know, you're not even giving an opportunity to potential future opponents to kind of see, like, okay, what can we do against them? Like, what's working out? Because nothing is.
Yeah, that was a brutal victory. And bear in mind, that's with 2 substitutes in. 2 substitutes in Queso still wins games that well. You have to be terrified moving later on into the tournament. Speaking of that, let's take a look at our Razer phone bracket right now. Queso versus Skull Blacker is the game that we are currently in now, and the winner of this one will be going up against Team Asura, who right now, if I'm Team Asura, I'm quaking in my boots. But let's take a bit of a closer look at what actually happened with Fern Skull Blacker back in week number 1 of the play-ins, or week number 2, sorry it was. They actually had a decent series against Underlook Gaming. It was a very close one as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good plays coming out of Fern Skull Blacker, but you know, obviously this is a different team that they're up against. This is Underlook Gaming. It's not Team Queso that they're playing. You can see this team fighting. You know, they're able to find these, you know, very chaotic fights and sort of be the ones that come out on top of the chaos. But the difference of going up against a team like Underlook Gaming versus a team like Queso is Queso doesn't get into those hectic, chaotic fights. Queso gets into very controlled, and you know, they're the ones that decide when and where these fights happen.
I feel like a big difference between that game in week number 2 versus the game here today was Attendix wasn't really able to get himself set up. Obviously, in the games that they had against Underlook, he was on things like the Celeste. He was able to set up. He was able to do a lot of damage over the course of those fights without getting dove. But against a team like Queso, that's harder to set up. You need the rest of the team to be on board with that and actually be protecting him, be cohesive as a unit.
Yeah, and even if you have the entire team being all on board with that idea of protecting the carry, you're still dealing with the fact that the members of Queso, just individual, each individual just seems better than each individual matchup versus matchup on the side of Queso. And so even if you have a team fully on board, it still can be very difficult to execute it if you're falling behind just in the laning phase.
I mean, like, I don't think anyone is going to beat around the bush here. This is definitely very heavily favored towards Queso. Game 1 has proven that fact. Now Fernskull Blacker, they need to go back to the drawing board if they want a chance in game number 2 here. Kinetic going to be the first ban. It's going to be followed up by Kensei. We'll see what Fern are going to do with this last ban here, because they have a chance here. If they ban something like the Fortress, they can manipulate it so that either Reza or Anka is available for them. But again, we mentioned this in the last draft, they can be risky first picks.
I would almost want to see them take the Reza off the board as well and just go for something like the Fortress that has been banned away almost every single game, but they're not going to do it. They're going to ban away the Fortress, leave those carries open for it. Now Queso decide how they want to kind of let these first couple of picks pan out.
Yeah, well, see, they're going to ban the Flicker, which means obviously both power picks will be available right here. Honestly, I think Reza stronger than Anka right now, just based off of the games we've been seeing recently.
I'm almost not even willing to call Anka a power pick at this point, because so many teams, she's been slipping through the draft. She hasn't been getting banned as frequently. She hasn't been getting picked. And so I'm not really willing to call her a power pick anymore, because teams just clearly are not putting that priority there. But it is going to be the Grumpjaw and Arden very early pickups here for Queso.
I think that she has mega potential, but I think maybe teams are just not.
You almost have to build a composition around her.
Yeah,
and I think that's very difficult to do without knowing what your opponents already have.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about the picks that have been locked in here. Grumpjaw and Arden for Team Queso coming on in there. And then we're going to have Tony locked in for Dawn. Now, Tony was in the hands of Tyra's last game and played it excellently. I have to say some of the trash talk into Bada Boom combos were absolutely superb. But that's going to be going the way of Fernskull Blacker as well as a Churnwalker. So actually very strong composition so far from Fern. Like, I can't really criticize that draft.
I'm not too sure if I really like the Churnwalker with Tony, because you have to really coordinate when you use those abilities extremely well, because if you have everyone chained up, Tony throws in a Bada Boom, all of a sudden nobody's chained anymore because they all got knocked away. So it's going to be very crucial for them to kind of choose when they use these abilities, and that coordination has to be on point, otherwise it can suffer heavily.
I definitely agree with that in some scenarios, but I think neither of those ultimates regularly hit all 5 anyway, so we'll see if that's going to be an issue. I mean, I guess we'll find out, because so far this team has not been that coordinated, so it could be an issue for them. Vox is going to be locked in as well as a Glaive, though. I'm excited to see Tyra's on Glaive here. I assume that's going to Tyra's. It's definitely his style of hero.
Yeah, absolutely. The aggressive jungler could still go into the lane, but it feels like it's going to be their jungle pick. Celeste's going to get locked in by Fernskull Blacker. They're kind of sticking to just what is known to be strong in the meta, whereas it feels like Queso has a little bit more freedom in their picks.
They could round out with a Finn here, because they already have decent damage. I think they need to get tankier, honestly. They're going to
go for more damage.
I feel like maybe having a second captain in this lineup would have done them a lot better than...
Especially something like you said, like the Finn, who is... Finn is just one of the strongest captains in the game, in my opinion, at the moment, because of just how much he provides to the team.
And the concern is that who protects the Tendix, right? He has no defense. Anka is going to be the final pick coming on in here. Hundo's going to grab that in the top lane. So it's actually going to be... No, it is going to be the Glaive going in the jungle in the end. But yeah, I like each of the individual picks on the side of Fernskull Blacker, but as a composition, it feels a little bit disjointed, and we'll see if they're going to be... It's like snowball and win, basically. If you win your lanes, you're going to win the game, but are they going to win the lane?
Yeah, and the difficulty is, look at what they're up against. You have the Glaive, who can set up so many early kills, with the Anka, who we talk about the fact that she can take over a game if you just have someone who can help set her up for those kills. And you mentioned the lack of tankiness on the side of Fernskull Blacker. That's another big plus for Anka. That's why Anka was the last pick. It's, again, we talked about the fact that you want to pick her up later in compositions once you see what your opponents have. And I firmly believe if Finn is picked up there, Anka likely does not get taken.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe that is the case. I mean, only time will tell as we move further in our tournament. But for now, it's looking like Queso are feeling strong coming on into this one. It's game number 2 now between Queso and Fern Skull Blacker. We'll find out if Queso can get this 2-0 or if Fern have got something hidden up their sleeve. It's time to head on to Sovereign's round.
Oh, I've just had Flash X juice in the break, and I'm ready to go in this game. Ready and pumped.
Oh,
And Fern on the blue side.
So glad to hear it.
compositions?
Definitely, I mean, just more of the same, very traditional meta. One kind of off meta pick, though. Tyra's going for the glaive, not a hero that we've seen too much of. Super excited to see Hundor on the Ankh in this mix. I think the skill cap on Anka is absolutely incredible. I fully expect to see some dirty plays coming out of Hundor. Things about to get spicy, though.
Hondo goes in, lands that B. That's a big push on to the Tony, who's now isolated. Silver Skull taking lots of damage, but kiting back nicely as Tyra's as well. Sapphire gonna get decimated in Queso. They make short work. You aggress in our jungle? No way. Palmotoro moves forward, has popped his flask already, quickly backs out, and that is gonna be a whole load of kills, maybe a delayed ace going over to Queso here as they do manage to dodge out that. Oh, there we go. Tyrus picks up the delayed ace. And that is all 5 members killed. 5 kills at the start of the game. Every buff now looking like it's going to go the way of Queso.
That is one way to get things started for the side of Queso. They had the 20-0 perfect game last game. I would be super stoked to be able to see them replicate the same success. Bayou, my friend, stepping up big time into these shoes. It might be time for him to come out of retirement.
I think the calling is there. You're not going to get hair back anytime soon, mate. So you need to be looking towards your pro career again. So
be able to buy your pro hair from your pro career.
buy your pro hair for your pro career. I'm winding him up. I actually love Bayou, so you know I'm glad to see him do. I'm glad to see him doing really well. I'm glad to see him doing really well here. And again, that was a nice start there as for Tyrus as well, who on this glaive, it's a pick that you see sometimes in solo queue. I think like glaive is a really good solo queue pick because he's one of those sort of heroes that if you're good, you can make things happen. And it's good to see Tyrus now flexing that. It looks like he's going towards a. Oh, he's almost at that spell sword with the heavy steel and the chronograph picked up already. And again, something that Queso do really well is abuse those item advantages.
Yeah, Hagman going for this Vox one more time. He's got the CP buff. No crystal items in his kit yet, so if it is another CP Vox, we will find out very shortly. You know, if you are on the side of Fern Skull Blocker, you got a little bit more range this game. You have the Celeste in the back line. You have the Gwen in the back line. You have Reza who can step in and out of Vox's range. I think that would actually play into a CP Vox much better. Celeste, after burned, gonna be able to get out of that one cleanly, though.
Yeah, it's an attempted push, another big 5-man group up in this mid lane, but as you can see, Queso much further in terms of the item advantages. Hegman overextending, but has got that flash to keep him safe. He will go down. That's their first kill. Is that what Fern need to get themselves back into this game, as Bayou could be the second target here? He goes down over the wall to Dawn. Hundor, though, very fed now with a heavy prism and an eclipse prism, is going to be able to clean up 2 for himself. Silver Knight is going to back off. Dawn is going to be the next target who's forced to pop his own flask, and Hundor may be searching with an A and a B to try and clean this one up there. Oh, just misses. He's not going to overextend too much, and I think Tyra's trying his best in a 2 versus 1 situation will go down eventually to the Chunwalker tick. However, Queso do come out with the CP buff still in their favor.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely for Fern Skull Blocker to go down 0-5 and keep their composure like that and be able to put 3 kills on the board in that engagement. I think that's great for them. It shows that they do have somewhat of a composure despite, again, this uphill battle. Queso's such a good team that you really need to step it up big time to be able to compete with them. They're looking to get aggressive, though. Dorn, very low. I do not think he's going to be able to secure his Treant, and hopefully Fern is able to keep their composure here.
Palmotoro actually has to get a huge amount of shielding coming out from his flask and from Bayou. A clutch Vanguard from Bayou to keep Palmotoro alive there. And they're going to trade 2 for 0. And that's going to be the weapon-powered Treant secured by Tyras and Hunter. Going to be donated over to Tyras, of course, because he'll make the most use out of it. And again, 2k gold lead by 4 minutes. Queso looking good.
Absolutely. One thing that I don't think we've actually touched on too much is how different the contract meta is. Earlier on in 5v5, we saw so much of the Iron Guard contract, but ever since 3.6, ever since VPL has picked back up, we have seen so much Dragon Blood contract and actually so much Protector contract too. Bayou with that Protector contract, and on top of that, the bases to Crucible is his first item. That Vanguard able to keep Palmator alive in that last engagement was so strong. Reza, though, you're supposed to be the one dealing the burst damage. Unfortunately, in this situation, you're going to be the one getting bursted, my friend. See you later. Hundor Tyra is picking up another kill in the top lane.
I mean, it's Shatter Glass at 5 minutes for Hundor on this anchor. That's the first big item spike. You use that to try and snowball out, and you can see the damage that he's doing at this point is pretty insane. I mean, imagine hitting a Shatter Glass spike before a Reza hits his Aftershock spike. But meantime, in the bot side of the map, it's an engage by the Tony. They're trying to kite backwards. Palmatori doesn't have that flask. It is so low for Tony as he actually gets that shield up. Bio trying to force them forward. Hegman looking for the kills. Great core collapse from the Celeste, but unfortunately not enough to zone away the Resonance bounces. Dawn even sticking around for a couple of extra CS. Palmatori finds another engage. That's going to be a kill. 2 for 0 once more. And Queso business as usual.
Yeah, putting up so many kills this early. I mean, Attendix on the Celeste going down 0-3. King Rito official 1-4 on the Reza. That's not where you're going to want to be sitting. Queso, I love this much earlier Ghost Wing take or attempt to take on their behalf earlier on in this game. Hegman should position aggressively, which he will. Make sure Dorn and Saphira are not able to contest this. Hundor, as soon as he marks the target. See ya later, Gwen.
And he's going to get another one there onto the side, and they're going to pick up the Ghost Wing to boot. Looking more aggressive, although in the early game, oh my word, Attendix goes down. Hundor did have to use his ultimate, but it's the first time he's had to this entire game. He is 6-0-6 on this, what I think is bot lane CP anchor. And Anka, he is certainly strutting his stuff.
Anka is absolutely disgusting. Again, such a high skill cap hero. A player who's so mechanically gifted, such as Hundor, definitely playing her to her full potential. In my opinion, Anka is actually the single strongest hero in Update 3.6. No surprise to see Hundor just tearing this game absolutely wide open, hitting these early item power spikes. He's already level 8, sitting 3 levels ahead of some of these other carries. He's just an absolute monster.
Oh, Tyrus didn't quite find the afterburn there. They are taking turret quite heavily. Tyrus is going to be forced to pop his flask. That will get him out of there. But unfortunately, Fern just not in a position. Even if they did use the pull from Churnwalker, there's just no way they get anything out of it. Churnwalker now going very low. Bio trying to pick that off. A nice defensive ultimate from Saphira from Dawn, but it will not do much for Hundor as he continues to dive on this anchor. And that's going to be another clean tower dive sweep. This could be the mid lane tower going down as well. Jesus, this is a bloodbath. This is decimation, and Queso are now what, 8,000 gold up in the lead?
Yeah, 8,000 gold. 8 minutes, exactly kind of the acceleration that we saw in this last game. Hundor on this Anka, if I were on Fernsko Blacka, I would be pulling my hair out. He is so far ahead. Attendix isn't safe in this backline. Dorn isn't safe in this backline. He's gonna mark someone. He's gonna go in. He's gonna blow them up, and he's gonna continue to just rack up these kills and decimate the side of Fernsko Blacka.
Unfortunately, Bio giving up his life there. He didn't have that fountain. Did pop the flask, but it wasn't enough. They did overextend just a little bit on that tier 2 turret dive there. But here comes Hundor. He's thirsty for blood. Can he land an A? Because he does so much damage at this point in time. Maybe even waiting for that B reset. Look for an A. Get onto the Celeste if he can. That's what he's going to do. Doesn't have enough to kill her off. Didn't want to use that ultimate. And the fountain comes down too. In the meantime, Tyra's got locked in a 2 versus 1 versus the Gwen, and the Tony ends up going down.
Spellfire, one of my favorite additions to come to the Sovereign's Rise. The Mortal Wound on crystal powered abilities. So fun. That's why the fountain was forced out. Dorn gonna tick very low. The burst damage out of Anka. What is that? That's absolutely insane. He's gonna continue. He can do whatever he wants at this point. If we were to see a 1v5, I think Anka is going to be the hero to do it, and definitely going to be one of the favorites in terms of heroes to put up some of these highlight reel style clips, and Hundor definitely has the mechanics to make them happen.
Yeah, she's incredibly fun to play. So much interaction between her abilities as well, and that's one of the beauties of Vainglory's hero design, that even with just the 3 abilities, they still feel very complex. That is walking into a death trap. That is going to be 2 kills for the Anchor, and Hundor now at 12, 0, and 7 at 10 minutes into the game. What an insane stat line to have. Queso not pushing their advantage too much in terms of map objectives right now, with only 1 turret on the board. Hundor is going to pick up that CP buff for himself. I think just at this point in time, when you're so far ahead, Ghost Wing's up, go for Ghost Wing, start to take down some of these turrets. You need to, look towards finishing the game as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Hundor, just run around, blow everything up, make it a quick game, put Fernskull Black out of their misery. He's going to go in. Gwen, she was there less than a half second later. She was gone. Tyra's picking up more kills on the other side of things.
Yeah, he gets a double kill here as the Churnwalker goes down. A massive dive from Hundor. Oh my god, that is decimation from Queso. And the ace comes through at 11 minutes into the game. Hondor's going to dive across the tower. They should be able to at least push on to this this choke point turret now. That might be them getting an armory.
Yeah, I would love to see Palmator start up this gold Ghost Wing, just solo it, give yourself, your team, the extra damage buff. Even though Bayou in this front line gonna be taking a little bit low, with Hundor there standing behind him, it's not even gonna matter. He can back him up. Great block though on the bottom boom.
Yeah, and that's another 2 kills for Hundor. 16-0-9. He's not done yet. He's going to continue to go in. Doesn't block the Celeste core collapse, which will get her out of that situation. But right now, oh, he's diving it. That's another big ultimate from him. He's going to do his best, but he gets cleaned up by the ultimate from the Reza. He was looking for the pentakill here, but this could be an 11-minute win now for Queso, who just pushed down that mid lane. They're trying to get the kill onto King Rudy, but that will not be enough. And now they just have to chunk their way through this Vein Crystal, slowly. I think Fern are going to try and stop them, though. Looks like the Tony Taunt goes in. This is going to be an engage by Fern, maybe looking to clean up. But Hegman's strong. We haven't talked about him. He's actually in a really strong position, and he is chunking people on this Vox with just 2 items right now. 9 breaking point stacks already built up, but it's enough for Queso. Can't quite finish the game off this push.
Yeah, they're gonna back out. They're gonna reset. They're all sitting on a time. Pick up some more big item spikes, the pulse weave onto the glaive, which I actually think is a really interesting pickup for a glaive, but do what you can. Unfortunately, Hegman gonna stick around a little bit too long, get caught out, and fall to Fernskull Blacka.
I think pulse weave is one of those items that's just good on a lot of melee heroes. I don't think glaive particularly needs it, but
here it is.
A lot of people are under it.
The 1v4, the 1v5.
Here we go. Anchor going in, doesn't manage to get it. A little bit too angsty from Hundor there. Really wanted the 1v5 pentakill, I think, but
he didn't find the block, unfortunately. If he would have found the block at collapse or the trespass, I think he might have been able to do it.
Tyra is, though, doing a lot of damage still on this glaive right now. Spell Sword into breaking point. Not going to stack as quickly as if you had a Sorrow Blade, but still will stack fairly easily at this point in time. He gets the nice afterburn onto King Rudy, isolates him from the team. That's another chain stun going through, and unfortunately, they don't have the reflex blocks to deal with it. Palmatura and Bayou really not doing damage, but Hegman is making his way back in. There's the ultimate. The engage by Palmatura. That's going to pick up 1. Now Hegman trying to kite backwards, but this this Rez are actually doing a decent amount of damage this game, and Hegman and Bayou are going to be forced out as Dawn actually putting out some serious numbers as Palmatora himself doing what he can to try and chase him down. Here comes Hundor, though. Hundor found his target. That's 1. He's looking for 2. Resets. Get the second one. Does get the second one. The Spellfire ticks down. Now he's going to go into Saphira. Dodges out the hook really nicely. Also looking to get a triple kill. Come on, give him the Penta. You know you want to. He's going to start on this Vein Crystal. This should be the game for Queso.
Yeah, I don't think Fernskull Black are going to be able to do anything to stop them down. A little bit sloppy play coming out of the side of Queso. I think when you do get that far ahead, you can have some fun with it. Do what you can. Oh, Hegman picking up the great kill right there. Everyone teleporting back into the base. Queso has all 5. 2 quick, clean, crisp games by Queso. Certainly room for improvement. Hundor, 22 kills. You mad lad. Anka definitely showing why she has been banned in so many of these VPL matches. I would be shocked if Fernskull Blacka could do it all over again if they would give Hundor the Anka once again.
Yeah, look incredibly good, and that will be the final game of our European section of VPL today. Going to hand it back over to Des to round out the day.
What a game coming out from Queso. We were starting to wonder about the pick of Anko, whether it was that valuable. Hundor just broke the record for most kills in a VPL game with it.
Yeah, and that is both regions, North America and Europe, includes the preseason. It's not like we're just taking, he's the most kills in the course of like 3 weeks. No, this is over 8 weeks of play in 2 regions. Hundor shattered the old record. The old record was 18. Hundor just put up 22 kills in a single game.
And honestly, if they'd chosen to, they could have just dragged that game out and just padded that start of that stage because they were so far ahead. Those 22 kills in 14 minutes. Like, right, I knew that this was going to be a one-sided matchup, but Queso have just absolutely dismantled it.
Yeah, and again, we expected it to be lopsided. We didn't expect it to be too much of a challenge for Queso.
It's the fact that it was 2 subs and it was still this one-sided. It's like, whoa, this is a roster with
There's a reason
so
that we
much
both
firepower.
agreed on putting Queso as the #1 team in Europe.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason for it, and you all just witnessed it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see them moving on into the... I'm excited for them against Azura. Let's take a look at our Razer phone bracket for Group B as we now have our quarterfinal decided. Queso against Azura. Now, Queso definitely looks stronger than Azura today, but Azura had an awesome series as well. So I'm excited for that matchup next week.
I'm just wondering how many kills we're going to get in that series. One of those Azura games had 60-plus kills in 22 minutes, so both of these teams not afraid to be hyper aggressive.
Absolutely, and that is 3 of our quadrants done. We just have the D section of the bracket remaining. 2 more round of 16 games. They'll be coming up tomorrow. But before we jump into what else is going to be happening later today, let's have a word from Razer. Let's take a look at our Razer phone matchups here. We've just seen Azura and Queso both take their series 2-0. And now, later on, we're going to be jumping on into our North American games. That's going to be starting in about an hour's time with Vegetable Juice versus Polar Ace. And then we're going to have Nova's debut up against Liberation X.
And I'm so excited for that matchup. Again, it's one of those matchups where, you'd expect, just looking at the seeds, that Nova should be able to take that one, but this is Liberation X we're talking about. This is a team that doesn't really care about what your seeding says, doesn't care about what the conventional norms are. Liberation X is a team that can put up a fight against top squads.
Absolutely, and that'll be in the B quadrant of our bracket, and then tomorrow we'll jump into the D bracket. So by the end of tomorrow, we'll have all of our quarterfinals decided. But it has to be said, Nova against Liberation X. That is easily the hype game. That's the marquee matchup of the day, and we already had 2 incredible series today.
Yeah, I mean, we get to see a bunch of excellent play today. There's a reason why, coming into today, this was the day I was most excited for the round of 16. I cannot wait to get into North America and get those games underway and see how everything plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is going to be it from us for our European stream. Make sure you stick with us, though. In an hour's time, we're going to be coming back with our North American games. I cannot wait to see what Nova have to bring to Sovereign's Rise. That's going to be it from us, though. So we'll see you guys in a little bit.